important list that we have here, and I think it's really good that we have it. So what I'm gonna do is, I want each one of our panelists to just introduce themselves to the group. I think that's really important that you say in your own words who you are and why you're here.
Hi, I'm Jerry Irving. I am principal of BioPhil Natural Fibers. We are one of the only processing at scale for industrial, processing in the state of Pennsylvania. I would say in the country. When I go out there and look around, a lot of people say they're doing stuff and it's not really being done. It's very difficult. It was a long process. It's going to take a communal effort to build this industry. I got Cynthia Petrone and Mike Hudak back there. We worked with when we first got into the business. You can ask them how tough it is. I mean, we try to do it with stalk from CBD, it doesn't work. If you grow for CBD, we can't use that stalk for industrial hemp. It's got to be grown industrially for us to process, to make herd and fiber, to make for those products that you want to make from industrial stalk. So we thought the same thing you did when we bought our decorticator. We went around to all these farms that were CBD farmers, took their stalk and tried to process it. An engineer came from Australia and looked at us and said, you're doing this all wrong. It's not going to work.
Because you have to grow it different.
You have to grow it specifically for industrial. So then we had to go buy seeds from China, Ukraine, and start giving it to farmers to teach them how to grow for us. And we started with the historically black farmers, because the Amish farmers and other farmers had gotten such a bad taste from growing CBD and losing their shirts, they didn't want to hear anything about growing hemp. So we end up buying all the seeds ourselves, because it starts with the farmer. If you have nothing to process and you have the best machine in the world, you're not going to end up with anything. So it starts with the farmer. So we end up buying seeds, going around to all the farmers, handing them the seeds, showing them how to grow it, and then going back and harvesting it and bringing it back to our facility to process. And then we had to start with that, and then we had to develop a processing way to where the manufacturers could use it. That means clean herd, clean fiber, degummed fiber in every fashion. So it's a very difficult task to do. And it was old technology that we had that we lost. So we went around the country and bought all this old technology, all this old equipment, bought it to Phoenixville, started testing it and trying to clean it, trying to make it so it looked better and it was usable, and we finally got it. But we did it on our own dime. And we spent millions of our own money doing this because there wasn't government subsidies. There wasn't a financial institution that was willing to take that risk. It was all self-funded. So now we are getting funding. When you talk about subsidies, so Senator Sharice Street has given us an earmarked a $5 million grant to bring it to Philadelphia, because that's where they want it. We started in Phoenixville. They weren't very friendly to us. They gave us a very hard way to go. THC level, who cares about THC level industrial hemp? You're not ingesting it. It's going into a product. So they wanted to come test it when we were processing it. And it just added another expense and another barrier that we had to knock down in order to keep moving forward. So now we had to grow a stalk that tested less than 0.3. Well, I mean, it's industrial. It's going in the clothes, it's going in the concrete, it's going in the horse bedding. It's not going in your body. So that was like a big hurdle we had to get over, and they really gave us a hard time. So Philadelphia really, Senator Sharice Street and Dwight Evans looked at us and said, you won't have this problem here in Philadelphia. We're going to give you money to bring it here, because we're going to create plenty of jobs between the farmers, the processing, the packaging, and getting it to the manufacturer. I mean, just from our one plant, we're talking 75 to 80 jobs. And that's a small plant. And I do have a proposal for you to show you what it does, to put a central processing plant together at scale to really bring the economy and to get it out to different manufacturers. Mm-hmm. So you talk about Kimberly-Clark. We could easily make hemp toilet paper, hemp paper towels, but we would need to scale to provide them enough to where they wouldn't have an incentive to bring trees in from Brazil to process. But we need to get it to, so they can rely on us to get it to them so they can make their products.
It's a chicken and egg.
Yeah, and we're not there yet. We would need to scale it with government subsidy. And the reason we do is because right now we're paying a farmer out of our pocket to grow, okay? And a farmer will grow for you, but he wants to know he's gonna get paid. So we escrow the money. For every acre that they grow, we pay them about $700 an acre, but we give them the seeds and we harvest it. All they gotta do is plant it and watch it grow. There is no pesticides, there's no nutrient schedule. You just plant it and you let it grow. And it does grow like bamboo. Whoever said here, it does grow like bamboo. And the biggest thing is that if we can get a program in place to help the farmer and take care of the farmer, that's only gonna help our industry. And that's a big part of it, the supply chain coming from that end. But like I said, we've been doing this for 3 or 4 years.
Thank you so much, Irving. I don't want to cut you off.
That's all right.
But we do want to, like, one of my jobs as a moderator is to keep time. So, like, I'm not really doing a great job right now. So I'm going to do better, right? Anna, please introduce yourself and, like, just a little bit more brief than Jared. How about it? All right.
Good evening. My name is Konopatskaya, and I'm a CEO and co-founder of Coexist. Coexist is an architecture company and a manufacturing company that focuses on client-resilient structures and non-toxic structures. So first, what brought us into hemp is the fact that you use no chemicals to grow it, no chemicals to make the building materials, and it replaces all kinds of materials that either off-gas in your house or trap those gases inside of your house. So we feel that I'm an architect by trade, and we felt that it can make a huge difference on people's lives without really big commitment on people's end. It's just if they choose this product, it will do that job for them. And so touching on everything that was said before me, also in terms of research, we operate a research farm that allows us to understand exactly how industrial hemp grows. We were actually one of the first farmers in the state of Pennsylvania to receive industrial hemp permit, and now we have a research permit. And so we tried and figure out what kind of variety grows better, what it needs, how much care, how much water. Actually, it doesn't need water, we don't water it. So it's very important. We also work with a lot of industry partners to develop different materials for the build that can be incorporated into the building. But I guess we are a company of many firsts, but the most important one to note is that we're the first company to manufacture a building block. It's not structural, it's an insulation, but it does replace all kinds of other layers in the building. And we are continuing our further research in that area. And as we are working, we also realize that there is a gap in a certain type of equipment. And so we're developing that equipment now. We received about $500,000 of grants, state, federal, and private money. And we are developing a plant in Reading, Pennsylvania. We don't want to go out of Pennsylvania, we want to stay here, and we want to make Reading the center of biocomposite manufacturing. So that's where we're headed, that's what we're working on, and we're very excited to see it come to life soon.
My name's Shawn House. My number is 1-800-USE-HEMP, so you know it's a good number. Tied this together, I met with Maya Rodale Institute years ago. I met with Senator Brubaker, Senator Rohr, and at the Pennsylvania Farm Show set up for 17 years talking about hemp. So I've been planting a lot of seeds. I own the Hempzels pretzel company, so we make a high protein soft pretzel. We're adding value to traditional products, and I think that's kind of the angle that we need to come from with adding value to whatever line you're going to be producing. So I have the Natalie's Choice line, which is health and wellness. We've done baklava with hemp seed, and we've done other food products, but it's a whole different thing. I know a lot, but I don't know a lot either. So I'm not an expert on anything, but I have a lot of connections, a lot of history. Part of the Just Say No campaign, KNOW for knowledge, not Nancy Reagan, NO for ignorance. I'm a little bit more of a radical when it comes to getting to the root of things. Kind of my attitude anymore is abolish DEA. That starts with getting rid of the federal issue, because it's always a finger pointing thing. Legislators are tied up by laws, and we got to question the laws by who's right and at whose expense. I'm not a big subsidy guy. I've not put millions of dollars into my business, but I've lost thousands and thousands of dollars that way. And that's how you learn, through stress You learn different ways to turn and different ways to adapt, and things have come out of that type of stress. But it's been almost 30 years, and I enjoy this courageous conversation with Hemp, but I could kick this ball further down the road, and we could get it done a lot quicker. I work with the Amish. You'll see plastic shovels over there. I have a license agreement with the Cannabis Museum in Ohio. We have a license agreement with a commercial, for a commercial ice cream using hemp seed, which would be dairy-free, to complement our soft pretzels and our beverages. So a lot of working relationships, and I'd love to see where this goes. And thank you very much for inviting me.
Great, thank you so much to our panelists for giving us a little bit of insight about why you're here and what you do. It's really important for the conversation. So, question 1, is the hemp boom over? When the hemp boom started, farmers, rookie and seasoned alike, rushed to cash in on the newly legal crop. But the combination of crop failure, skyrocketing hemp supplies, and depressed prices may have been discouraged. Can the industrial hemp industry rebalance? And how can the expectations of a mature and stable U.S. hemp market be envisioned? Or is it likely that hemp will remain a specialty crop? Who would like to go first on the panel? Don't all just jump in.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'll go first. One. Does it work? Or do I need
You have to press the
button?
mute button,
All right.
right?
One.
Okay.
One. I don't think it works. Thank you. Okay. Talking about the boom.
Yeah, again, not
Okay.
intuitive. Go ahead.
Okay, so if we're talking about a boom in CBD, it's one thing. Boom in industrial hemp is completely different. I think in my industry, in architecture and construction, at the very least, I hope that we're still at the beginning of it. Everything takes a long time in architecture. To become an architect takes a long time. To build something takes a long time. To develop a new product, sometimes a green product, it takes up to 10 years to introduce to the market and see it actually take off. So we are now, so we've been in it since 2017, I think. It was legalized in 2018. So we anticipate another 5 to 8 years maybe for this become a mainstream product. So, but this question, is it over or not? Is it a trend? It's actually on my mind quite a lot, because we probably talked about bamboo flooring. There was a boom about bamboo flooring. Everybody was crazy about it, but now nobody wants it. People maybe don't like the way it looks, but most importantly, it actually off-gases a lot of chemicals. So it was a great idea at the beginning, but then people said, no, it's not that great, and so it's over. So this question sometimes does keep me up at night and thinking, okay, we're investing in all of this into this. Is this going to be, will it never gain traction? Because besides the regulations and standards and everything else we have to go against, there's also people's habits, construction industry habits. People want something very quickly, like that. The house built in 2 weeks. It doesn't work like that with hempcrete. So if you can't if you can't change people's expectations, perhaps it will go away as a trend. And that's something I definitely, don't want to see, because it is the answer to the future of our construction problems and our built environment. So something needs to change, and we're working on that. It takes a lot of work. It takes a whole industry community to change people's thinking about this product in many different ways. So to answer your question, I really hope it's not going to be over for a long time. I really hope that we're still at the very beginning of it.
You did, I'm gonna just follow up one time. Again, we're gonna get this. You said that it's the answer to our construction problems. Can you articulate more on that?
Yeah, actually.
That seems like an important question.
Yes, one thing I wanted to mention is that clearly my industry needs to do a lot more marketing, because not one of you asked anything about construction industry. So not many people know what it can do. It can be used as a building block, which is exactly what we built here. So our construction industry uses all these different layers of questionable products. You put drywall paint, you put pink insulation, which is a fiberglass inside of your walls. You put house wrap. It's all petroleum-based products. Vinyl siding, petroleum-based products. Number one, we're dependent on the petroleum. Number two, like I mentioned, so many products of gas. If you look at our products used inside, not only in construction products, but our furniture, our counters, our curtains, our clothing, it's all synthetic. And then if you look at the passive house construction, yeah, it's a really great technology, it comes from Germany, we believe that it's good for you. But they don't encourage you to open the windows, they don't encourage you to breathe fresh air. How is that? They think you should operate the machine to bring fresh air into your house, which makes it a processed air. So basically, you live in a plastic box and breathe processed air. I can't believe that that is healthy. And so what we're trying to change here is basically eliminate those questionable materials out of your wall and build a solid wall. A wall that's made out of very simple materials. It's hemp, lime, some water, some pozzolans and lime, with lime, and that's it. And placed in the formwork and plaster applied on both sides, and that's it, you're done. There is no house wrap, there are no plastic components to that. And it continues to purify your air while it's calcifying, which is the process that will go on for the next 200 years. So it actually, removes CO2 out of our air as it grows, hemp, and then that continues the same process while it's inside of your house, in the walls, improving your air quality, improving the temperature reducing temperature variation, humidity variation. It does not grow mold. It's an amazing product. And so if you read news now in California, just last month, people were seeking refuge in some commercial building because their ACs were not capable of keeping the temperature cool in their houses. This kind of construction will help people to keep their temperature low and pay less money for the energy use. So that's what we're talking about climate resilient structures. This is a product of the future. And the sooner people embrace it, the better. And also that will, the mass demand of this product will reduce the cost of the product. So it's all a cycle. So so basically the goal here is to do marketing, to bring the demand up and lower the cost of the product, and then we'll be in the mass market.
Great.
Yeah.
Did any of our, Jerry or Shawn, do you have anything to add to that question?
Oh, no, she.
Thank you very much.
She did a lot, yeah, she did.
So the question is it a boom or a fad? And obviously it's not. It's the oldest fiber seed and oil crop in recorded history. We can see what the Europeans are doing, and they're way ahead of the game. But it was greed that drove everyone to get on the CBD bandwagon. I supplied hemp flour recently, July 4th, to Afghanistan, that they're using hemp flour in their naan bread to increase the protein because they're so poor. And I was asking, what were you guys doing before? He goes, oh, we're growing CBD last year. I'm like, you helped tank the world market for hemp. Everyone familiar with Floyd Landis?
Yeah.
Okay, so Floyd's right across from my area in Wrightsville, Pennsylvania, Columbia, PA. He just liquidated $1 million worth of equipment because it's too expensive. They have so much CBD on their hands and they don't need to stay open. So the market is tanked. Steve Groff, who I represent doing his line of CBD products, and this is Steve Groff Lancaster, not Steve Groff North America, who bought his way into the hemp industry with equipment. But Steve is growing industrial hemp, and he did get it from China. And last year in California, they grew 23-foot tall hemp stock. Larry, a fellow I know from Hemp Traders in California. So the Amish were burnt by the Jerusalem artichoke thing many years ago. So they've always been skeptical, and they need to make money, and we need more than corn, tobacco, soy, and wheat. So this 5th and 6th rotation crop will pay for itself. But our job has to be, Russ Diamond came up at the farm show and said, Shawn, what can we do to help get the hemp business going? I'm like, your job is to repeal the restrictions prohibiting the farmers from growing and processing hemp so the market can take care of itself in what works and what doesn't work. And so that's why I continue, we're doing pretzels, we're doing mustard, we've done different types of things to see what works and what people will actually want, not just make a piece of jewelry like, oh, it's hemp, oh, that's cute. I think some of it, again, how many people are here? And I've seen other trade shows, even medicinal cannabis trade shows, where they're not getting the attendance. It's like, been there, done that, that way. But I think there's still a lot more innovation to go on. And to address the thing with hempcrete, we should be, and this comes from a hempster that I've known and respect for 30 years, they need to be using agricultural waste for the crete ferrets. Don't sit around and wait for farmers to grow hemp. You know, get it going first with other agricultural industrial waste. And then as the market starts producing more hemp because the farmers want to grow it, then you're going to be able to go right into hempcrete. But don't kill your crete market just because it's got to be hemp. It actually doesn't have to be. Believe me, I have lots of hempcrete, and I sold that years ago, and I think it's great. Everything Anna said is correct about better body syndrome. Same with our carpeting. It used to be hemp matting. You know, it's all chemicals now. And so anyways, my goal had been, well, I've been contacting high industries in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. You know, because my goal is to coordinate this with the Amish and other farmers and then get the people with the big money, which would be high industries. Everyone's trying to go green and say, okay guys, the ball's in your court. Our commitment to you is to raise X amount of hemp. Let's get the equipment, et cetera, et cetera. So no, it's not over yet. I've got 30 years invested in this. I'm not about ready to give up so easily either.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's giving up. That's why we're all here today, right? We all think that this is important. But that's a good segue into our next question, which is, are regulations unnecessary barriers? The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has withheld approval for the sale of CBD as a food product or dietary supplement, issuing the statement on their website. While the FDA recognizes the potential opportunities that cannabis or cannabis-derived compounds may offer, and acknowledges the significant interest in these possibilities. However, FDA is aware that some companies are marketing products containing cannabis and cannabis-derived compounds in ways that violate the FDA Act, and that may put the health and safety of consumers at risk. How has the statement impacted the hemp industry and the future sale of products with or without CBD ingredients? How does this impact the usage of hemp as a plant-based medicine, or other regulatory barriers exist for the other uses of hemp, including construction materials? Do you want to answer first?
Like I said, the THC regulations is totally, doesn't apply to the industrial portion, it shouldn't. And that's a crack. That's something that needs to be addressed legislatively and just really put to rest. I think that takes a lot of the anxiety out of the farmer who's growing it for the industrial, knowing he doesn't have to worry about another barrier for his crop if it goes over, that he's gonna lose it and he's not gonna get paid. It just takes another risk out. As far as we talk about CBD, I mean, the FDA or whatever, you can keep regulating. If you outlaw Delta 8, you're gonna have THCO. You outlaw THCO, you're gonna have THCH. You outlaw THCH, you're gonna have THCP. There's so many cannabinoids and so many spectrums, and he can tell you right now, Rich can tell you. I mean, you can keep going down, you outlaw one, we'll come up with another to supply that market. So it's just a cat and mouse game. They really need to just open it up and let it go and just try to regulate it to some extent. But right now, self-regulation is the only way it's being done.
Can you explain, you were talking about all those variations? What do they mean?
Like the THC.
Yeah,
and
the THC.
different
Rich, you want to explain it to him?
Rich, would you like a microphone? I even turned it on for you.
Rich is a very, very well-known extractor, and he's a scientist when it comes
Does it
to.
work? You know, you press
Just
the
press
mute
it down and
button
then it
again.
works.
Yeah.
Try.
Hello?
Does it work?
Testing, does that work?
Oh
No?
my God.
Good, it's not even.
Sounds like it's on.
That is on.
Okay.
Go ahead, Rich.
Okay, well, thanks everybody. My name is Rich Trout, I live here in Media. And I have a plant over across the river, across the Commodore Barry Bridge, that I've been involved since the 80s, basically extracting cocoa butter. But 3 years ago, I threw my hat in this ring with the CBD, because I designed and built an extraction plant, and I thought we had a leg up on a lot of people. But I also saw these ridiculous prices crashing. When you're paying $80 a pound for hemp, I figured the farmers would go down first, but I figured it'd take a couple of years, but it took more like 8 months. And so everything I have, I put into it. And the very complex problems associated with hemp. It doesn't flow well, all the normal things you use when I extract, and whether it's cocoa wastes or saw palmetto or jojoba oil, all the great results I got, I didn't get with hemp. I mean, I can go on and on, just the material handling or the extracting. Every step of the way was an obstacle that cost a fortune to overcome as the whole market was crashing. So, my wife will attest to the fact that I put everything I own into it. We solved all the problems. We are a survivor. I don't want to jinx it, but I think we're gonna be okay. But we're in the CBD side. And I listen to all this, and so I have a very good system that, unlike these, most of the companies that are making CBD are using solvents that are not food grade. In fact, 10 years ago, I was in the pharmaceutical, nutraceutical business, and you couldn't get in the door to talk to anybody if you're using hexane as a solvent. Hexane is now used completely, even though it's toxic. So, and then all the big ethanol plants are 10% non-ethanol to make it poisonous to drink. We use food grade, believe it or not, butane, which is literally, the FDA is considered a food ingredient.
What?
It's, butane, which we use in our lighters, et cetera.
Well, I know what butane is.
Propane in
Could
a,
you please talk into the microphone?
hello, can you hear me? Is it off again? Is it working?
It was. Keep pressing the mute button until it's.
hemp batteries, I think they.
All right.
Hemp batteries will
All right.
last exponentially longer, but you
All right.
can project
Anyway,
yours.
I don't know, I'm not one of the people,
No.
but, hello, is it working? Okay, now it's working.
There it is.
Okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm not on this agenda
No, but
here,
we're breaking the rules. This
I
is
know.
a courageous
So-
conversation here.
So I'm here, I'm putting everything into this. I think we're gonna survive. Right now, I have a plant it's very unique in the solvents we use. We bring in biomass by the truckload. And I end up going through all these steps, very complex steps. And I end up with this white powder called, cannabidiol, pure CBD. And we make D8, one of the chemicals that Jerry was referring to. But I sit here listening and thinking, so now I'm surviving, I'm turning the corner. This is the first month that I think I'm not losing money in 5 years. And where does my hemp come from? I just unloaded the truck this afternoon from Oregon. Last week was from California. The next one's coming from Tennessee. And it's like, it is coming back. And so, we're here because we live in media. And I know the shows that I go to now are all about the fiber side, which is great. But we're not dead, the oil side. And so I do want to find out what's going to stimulate people going to back to growing it for the oil. And then on this note of the fiber side, which the hempcrete, the hemp cloves, I'm not part of it, I don't read about it, but other than being, and I'm saying other, I'm not downplaying the fact that it's green, what are the big benefits? Because I hear about the fiber. Whether you're working with fiberglass or carbon fiber and even aircraft now, you're using hemp fibers that actually are stronger in many respects. So we saw what just happened in Florida with the hurricane. I'm thinking, could you use these hemp fibers in some manner in construction and architecture whether you have a big roll of cloth instead of this, whatever you wrap a house in, wrap it in this fiber and
No
then
more
spray
fiber.
it with something and it'll withstand anything.
But then it will work as a sail.
Anyway, these are just the thoughts I'm having being here tonight.
Yeah. I just.
Sir, do you want me to just say a little bit about?
Yeah, because you know what, we
Delta
do
9?
have another spot on our panel. We do.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify, because I know there's some confusion around the Delta 8, Delta 9. So the original THC was a Delta 9, and so it talks about sort of the structure of the molecular structure of the THC. Cannabis has over 100 cannabinoids, as they're called. They're different substances that interact with your body in different ways. There's one, so somebody discovered that there was this Delta 8 THC, which the federal statutes, a lot of them refer specifically to Delta 9 THC, And therefore, when you talk about medical cannabis and what you can get at a dispensary, it's usually the Delta-9 THC, that's the active ingredients. The Delta-8 THC would only show up in trace amounts in the cannabis plant. But what people have found is that they can concentrate it, chemically concentrate it, and then infuse it into gummies or into other products, or even infuse it into flowers. I don't know how they do that exactly, but like paint it on or something. And then it actually provides a psychoactive, intoxicating response similar to Delta-9. And then I think what Jerry was referring to is, well, if you outlaw Delta-8 and Delta-9, there are other variations in other cannabinoids that also provide some kind of an intoxicating effect. So you have that whack-a-mole kind of effect. So it's better to just deschedule, which means take it off the Controlled Substances Act altogether, like alcohol, not on the Controlled Substances Act, and then the states can decide what they want to do. Yeah.
So it's the Delta-8 whack-a-mole loophole that is really providing a lot of problems, right?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna move on to the next question because I know there's a lot to talk about with Dream, Green, and construction, right? We're talking a lot about construction tonight because it's one of the aspects of hemp that has gone really not as marketed or discussed, and it really is such a great thing for sustainability. It's such a great thing for the environment and for people's health, human health and safety. So while Europeans have embraced hemp construction materials, the U.S. lags far behind despite all the green benefits of using a carbon negative, energy efficient, fire and mold resistant material like industrial hempcrete. Why do you think that is, and what do you think needs to be done legislatively or in the private sectors to support a growing hemp construction material industry?
Yes, so I'll take
She's
this.
like, I'm in it.
I wanted to touch up the previous question as well because it will lead directly to this one. So you're asking about the regulations, and the regulations for CBD and for industrial hemp completely different. But for construction materials, it's in addition to all of that, you probably are aware, or maybe not, that all the construction materials or products go through very rigid testing, and they have to be approved, have to comply with all kinds of standards. Like even the lighting, let's say, has to have all kinds of testing done before it goes into your house. And so the problem that we faced was that it was approved in Europe a long time ago. Why? Because some countries in Europe never stopped growing hemp. One of them, or in the world, I think there were only 4 countries in the world that never stopped growing. And one of them was France. And France, 40 years ago, they decided to kind of start using hempcrete as well for construction because it worked with their built environment. So they have a lot of stone buildings there, and hempcrete works great with insulating those stone buildings. This product was used before in Roman architecture and in 1600s in Japan. So it has a really long history. So someone in France looked at it and said, okay, great, we're gonna try and insulate. And it worked really well. And then it spread across Europe. Now it's in Italy, the manufacturing facilities in Italy, France, Germany, Belgium. People use it in other countries, in the UK it's huge. And the regulations they're up to date, or meaning the testing has been done on hempcrete. It's all allowed by code, by law, everything's great. In the United States, we're so lagging behind here. There are no tests done here. And so some companies are doing that. We're trying to catch up with Europe. They have different testing standards. We can't apply that here, so we have our own tests that we have to comply with and regulations. And so, lost my train of thought. That happens when you have little kids.
It's mom brain. I know.
Yeah. Anyway, so so regulations. So we believe, we were waiting for this point in history when it's finally proved in the US, and finally has been last week. It became part of the building code. We're very happy about that. We were one of the 4 companies that actually submitted the application, and we co-signed it, and it was approved, it was voted in. Now it will be in 2024, I believe, in the building code. Now we can build with it legally. Before you have to get a variance. And so it's a long process, but regulations are finally here. We're very happy about it. We believe that they have to be here, otherwise People will build anything, there are a lot of natural builders out there who will go and, and hempcrete is an insulation, it's okay. It's not a structural thing, it's not like there's a life safety there. But nonetheless, we believe that it needs to be regulated, and now it is, and now there's a green light, and we can go and we can build with it on a mass scale. And so this product, I just want to touch up on the properties of this product, why it's the future. It does not grow mold. So it's very important because every building has leaks. The quality of a building comes down to the quality of craftsmanship. So if you think about it, these products that are in our houses now, conventional materials, they don't discriminate. You'll find them in public housing and you'll find them in the $4 million houses. It's exactly the same products that go in all those houses. And so the $4 million house will not leak maybe for 15 years. The housing project maybe will leak in like 2 years. And it all comes down to how much the labor, the tradesman is paid. And so once there's a leak, your pink insulation doesn't work anymore. You have to replace it. It's very harmful for you to breathe in. You have to wear a Tyvek suit to protect yourself. It's crazy stuff, and that's what's in our houses. And so that's why homes grow mold. This product does not grow mold. It's also safe in terms of fire safety. It does not burn. On the testing scale between 0 and 400, it's a 0, which means that if you wrap your house with it in California, let's say, it's possible that if there is a fire goes through, it's possible that your house might be still standing after it goes through, which is incredible. So a lot of people in California are interested. Actually, these people were in touch with us. They wanted us to help them with the plans, and they found a local architect, which is best. Their house burned to the ground, and they are rebuilding it with hempcrete because it does not burn. So your structure will stand because you encase your structure in it. It helps you regulate the temperature inside. You don't have these high and low peaks, which means that you pay a lot less for your energy. So it benefits everybody, literally. And it grows a lot faster than trees. You can grow several crops in one season in the south, let's say. It could be incorporated into a rotational crop. It purifies it. It extracts heavy metals out of your soil. It aerates the soil. So it's really good rotational crop in every way. So it's a win-win-win for everybody. And so that's why we see that being really the future. Is the only thing that's really kind of scares me is that it does take longer to build with it. You need to train people how to work with it, and it costs a little bit more money. But we believe that with volume and the next maybe 10 years when it reaches the mainstream, we hope that the prices will go down. And then there was a question, I believe, from you in the black hat, from the gentleman in the hat.
In the black hat.
I'm sorry, I don't know your name. But I think you asked about what can be done to bring it into the mainstream. Maybe it wasn't you. Oh, it was you.
That was, yeah, her.
And I wanted to mention, so one of the things that we're doing on our end, so we created the blog and we realized that there's no demand. So how can we started a business and there's no demand. So one way to do that is we build a structure that kind of hit a lot of important points. You can build it by hand, so we build a kit that can be built in the backyard without a permit. 4 or 5 people can build it in about 5 days without any construction experience. It's built with hemp, no petroleum-based products, no off-gassing materials, nothing. All bio-based and natural materials. And so we kind of were published basically in all the famous publications across the world, across different disciplines, design, business, architecture, sustainability. And so that's how our word spread. And all of a sudden people were interested. We have tens of thousands of people who subscribe for our newsletter and pre-orders for these structures. So we finally got some interest in what we were doing. So the next thing is that we're working on is a piece of equipment that we are hoping to take to regionally across the US to generate local economies and give jobs to people, but also to be able to build, where I can't talk about it right now, fully being transparent. But this is something that will not only will bring this alternative to people, but also will help with the local economies. And so that's what we're working on. So we're aware of all these different roadblocks, and they're very difficult to overcome. And maybe we're a small company, but that's what we're doing at the moment. So I hope that others will follow. You know, competition right now is not a competition. We want other people to do the same thing and spread the word. And the more of us out there, the better, and everybody will benefit from it.
You said that the ASTM finally approved it.
Not ASTM, it's part of the building code.
The
So,
building code.
Yeah,
The
IRCC.
IRCC, and in what
BioPhil.
specifically, how did they approve it? For the tensile strength blocks
No,
or,
No,
for-
that's a testing that needs to be done. Let's say Underwriters Laboratory is this agency that does that kind of testing. It's very expensive to do those tests, and everybody knows hempcrete is not structural. Some people offer structural blocks out there. It's not blocks, it's the system. So concrete is what they pour in between the hempcrete, and concrete is a load-bearing system. And hempcrete is an insulator. So what it means is that it's part of the building code. So when someone submits a project for review at the Department of Buildings, they'll go in the back of their building code, which is alternative building materials, and they'll say, oh, okay, so it needs to be this thick, it needs to be that and that and that, okay, so this wall thickness complies, okay. You can use it for insulation only. So that's great, because before we have to go get a variance.
So I wanna make sure before we answer any other questions that other people
Yeah.
on the panel who have something that they wanna contribute to this question, have an opportunity to do so.
Part of the, Jerry,
Yeah.
did you want to say anything? Or?
They are making more progress with the hempcrete block. We are engaging one now that's coming from Canada that does have structural integrity and is approved through ANSI. They spent $9 million getting this patent. We are reviewing it, and it's one that we may produce here in Philadelphia that does have structural support. I've been talking to Amazon and a few other, they're building massive plants in South Jersey, 1 million square foot Amazon plants, and they're all robotic, and they're talking about using hempcrete in a certain portion of those buildings to increase their sustainability in their building trades. So every day there's always revolutionizing, and they're making it better and better, but you just have to look and see.
That's amazing. So you said something about the building trades. Is this something that like the buildings and trades like unions are starting to
Correct.
adopt?
Yes.
So, do you think that that's going to help? Because once unions start to adopt these materials, they're gonna have like a coalition of people behind them to push this, right?
And that's what we're doing right now in the
That's
city of
awesome.
Philadelphia. I talked to all the building trades, Senator Street, Dwight Evans, Derek Green, and we've been talking to all the building trades about the block that we plan to produce, and they've all endorsed it, along with, like I said, the Amazon construction. Iron Hill constructs all the Amazon plants for around the world, and the lead contractor for them has looked at this block, and they, if they can get it, they would use it. So yeah,
Yeah, that's really important for the impetus of change.
and they're willing to pay more for it because they're willing to do their portion for reducing carbon emissions. And again, you're gonna have these things called carbon credits
Yep.
pretty soon.
That's right.
So we don't talk about carbon credits, but they're going to be very valuable. And Wall Street jumps in with carbon credits, that's when it's going to take off, when you start generating those.
Pro tip, right?
Well,
Carbon credits.
related to that, is this in the mainstream idea and education, are these ideas coming into schools of architecture, into the research arena, so that the young people can be learning about this through their architecture degrees or any like that? Because this is the way ideas come out. They get, there's this TV show called Sustainability, but I don't see it everywhere. So I'm wondering if any schools of architecture are talking about this.
A very good question. They're not. Maybe some of them are. I don't know. I think architecture schools are very conservative in a way. I mean, some of them experiment. They maybe have experimental program, let's say, but not everybody takes that course. So we were actually across our mind that we should kind of go that way and maybe contact schools. We have contacted UPenn architecture program. So I'm hoping to talk to them and see if they would approve some kind of course, or maybe at least a couple of days at our facility to show how it's actually done. But because I completely agree with you, actually, I read one time about a guy who created Mercedes-Benz, the company, the company and machine and a car. And he said, our advertisements are geared towards 4-year-olds because by the time they're 30 and 40 and 50 and they can afford a car, they'll already think and know that the best car to buy is Mercedes. Whether or not it's true. But anyway, so he targets the children in his advertisements, and so we believe the same way. We have to target the students so when they come out, they know exactly what needs to be installed.
Or you start middle school, but that's another.
Yeah.
So
Or
if
kindergarten,
there's
why
3
not?
little pigs, we're building a house, they built it out of hemp creek, right? Is that, and that's how we get the kids in.
Yes.
It again is education. It certainly starts with the parents that way. And the universities in Michigan and other places are picking up on hemp cannabis, mainly because of the medicine aspect. And you have kids intrigued about cannabis medicine, et cetera. They're getting involved. So I know there are places that are teaching that and courses are coming up. But go back to the question on the fiber. What is the fiber worth? What are the benefits? It's antimicrobial, it's antibacterial, it's anti-wicking, and that's the use of the fiber. Mercedes-Benz were originally developed to run on hemp vegetable oil. That was in the 1890s. We did that with a car 3 months before 911. It was a Mercedes that ran on hemp biodiesel fuel. And you can see that on our website. We have that documented. Again, that was 3 months before 911, talking about in the newspaper not being held hostage to oil. But the fiber, and as Dave was pointing out, graphene, the issue you're going to run into for processing is it's got to be done within a 60-mile radius. So Ann is right in the sense of Berks County. Philadelphia, I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work, but it's got to be within, it's Berks County, it's Mount Joy, Lancaster, but within a 60-mile radius is where it's got to be because of transportation costs, and especially if fuel goes up. But farmers should be able to process their own hemp biodiesel fuel and run their tractors. The Amish could certainly hand cut, hand break, and get the fiber. And the key with the creep is the type of binder mix. It has to be like a Belgium binder mix versus, we're on Limestone Road. With limestone, lots in Pennsylvania, but you need a specific creep mix for curing it. And again, these guys, people are patenting it and trying to control it. But the other thing too, with the hempcrete, it's just wood structure or steel structure and blowing in there. So it doesn't take rocket science, and it's just politics and control that way. But you as parents and advocates need to continue to press upon senators and congressmen to make those changes sooner than later. Trying to think if there's any other issues on the textiles. You had questions about that. My attitude on the CBD, I've always been a whole plant person. I was very skeptical when the CBD thing came in. I kind of got on the bandwagon late, but to me that's cannabis light. And the CBD does work. And I'm certainly a big believer in it, especially with animals, because they're not psychosomatic like people. You give a dog that has dysplasia or problems and it's working, it's moving around, it's better. People are like, is it working or not? They don't really know, is it helping with pain? But that's the confusion with the isolation of A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever they want to do with THC, it's just politics and control, that way. So we've got to end that and let the consumer, the role of government is to help mediate disputes. So not create the rules and regulations per se, but if there's an issue between consumers, and that's where we say know your farmer. Where do you get your CBD? Where do you know your farmer? Where is it coming from? So hopefully that answers a few of the questions that have been thrown out there.
I have one more question, just to touch on this social equity thing, because I think this may be where we could possibly start to, intertwine some of this, is, how do we ensure, I know that the president just said that he was gonna pardon a whole bunch of people, thousands of pardons and stuff, so, are the jobs available for, those that have been wrongfully incarcerated for this, how do we give them the opportunity back? They just sat in jail for 10 years over a bag of weed, and now, somebody's out there making millions of dollars, building houses out of weed. What the hell? So what are some of the subsidies that maybe we could put to historically black colleges or something to ensure agriculture, types of coursework is out there and available? I know, Jerry, you have worked with returning citizens before in some of your plants, and I know that there are some rules that really hurt that in like a 5 or 10 year rule, like you can't go into the business if you got a prior crime, so just wondering if maybe now we can touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I can. I mean, I have a lot of thing that. So first, when we started, we are a minority firm. All my partners are minority. One is Palestinian, Mexican. There's me, and then we do have a vast landscape of board members from all walks of life. But we were committed to. So, like I said, when we went out and got farmers, we originally went to all the black farmers because they were denied any aid, anything that was out there from the government back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, they didn't get that aid. So that when we subsidized the farmer and we were paying for everything, we initially contacted the black farming community, starting from Florida all the way to New York. We have 8,000 acres of black farming land growing for us right now, okay? And then we went to historically black universities when we were processing, and I said, why don't you guys come in and learn about these products so you can learn about manufacturing with hemp. So we had Cheney University, Lincoln University, Delaware State. Some of their, kids come in. I would like, it wouldn't be an internship, but they came in just to get a touch on what we're doing here, okay? And then when I employed people, I went to the formerly incarcerated people that were incarcerated for weed crimes, nonviolent felonies, and they, and I said, do you want to come and work for us? We went around, we sent a van around to pick them all up, to show them how to process. Because it didn't matter who we brought in, we had to train them. Whether we brought in a guy who was a 4-year graduate or a guy who just got out of jail, both of them had to learn how to process because they didn't know. And we had to train them. So we actually did that with all these people from Montgomery County. I hooked up with the, anti-recidivism group. And these are guys who are just going through transition from parole and trying to find housing. They work for us. They got a check every week, and they were able to afford an apartment and able to make a living. So we still use those methods as our first means of employment in all of our processing plants. That are
I go back to the original thing, and that's abolish the DEA on the federal level, because it's been nothing but corruption. I mean, I collect everything historical. I have U.S. Agriculture Department 1928 talking about raising cannabis prior to this issue. We're reinventing the wheel, and to get to the root of it is to end the war on drugs, just like our great grandparents did the thing with alcohol and ended alcohol prohibition, because organized crime had gotten hold of it and had gotten power. But to do justice to any of the minority community or anybody of color that's been incarcerated for weed in Texas and everywhere else, that needs to be done. And you guys are old enough that you grew up in the 60s. You thought you were going to have it done in 1976 when Ronald Reagan, or before Ronald, Jimmy Carter was going to do everything. In Philadelphia, I heard guys talk about this. The parade in Philadelphia, oh, weed's going to, and then Just Say No came in with Ronald Reagan, and it's the war, and we've had a lot of corruption and confusion. Again, we're talking about the oldest fiber seed and oil crop. All this stuff is, U.S. Department of Agriculture has a litany of information on growing and stuff. It's there. The Hemp for Victory tape that the government denied it made, Jack Hare had to prove to him, find it in the library and showing it to show the government encouraged the farmers during the wartime to grow hemp for the war effort. Aren't we still at war? We've been at war forever, that way. So it's a lot of hypocrisy. And all the white people sitting in here, get the people of color, let's end the drug war, get the DEA, abolish it. Because again, it's just been historically criminal, playing both ends of the spectrum and creating confusion, and our kids are confused. Just because heroin's gonna be legal, I'm not gonna do it. Tobacco's legal, I don't smoke it. But I am a whole plant advocate, and I believe in freedom, and I believe in individual rights to pursue that. There shouldn't be a lot of rules and regulations to grow a plant. And part of the home grow for cannabis for medicine helps keep the monopolies at bay. And part of the other issue we've had in Pennsylvania, to be quite frank, is we've had foreign nationals come in and create laws and legislation. And that's helped perpetuate the confusion that's going on that our senators are telling us is really silly, but we don't know how do we do this? And Governor Schaefer gave us that answer in the 70s when Richard Nixon, our president, asked him to study it, and he said it should not be on the federal level. You know, so why are we not using our past conservative governors' words and just pulling it away from the feds? And common sense come back to the Keystone State so it can go forward just like hemp did into Kentucky, Wisconsin, et cetera, et cetera. You know, so that answers your question. Thank you.
Very good.
This is now like this ceremonial conch shell that we just pass around. It doesn't really feel like anybody's using it.
actually.
It does, I don't think.
Yeah,
Okay,
well, now it does.
Now it does,
Works
very
for
good.
us.
It works, it's intermittent.
Got mine
What?
going.
Who knew? Okay, anyway, we have one final question, and then we're gonna go on Q&A because I know y'all have a lot of questions. So, question, the future of industrial hemp. Currently, there's a scarcity in processing facilities and barely developed supply chains. And states like Colorado and Oregon are creating pilot programs for farmers who are competing with established growers and purchasing equipment. Colorado just purchased decortication machines. And what challenges exist to overcome these challenges, and how could government funding assist in alleviating these circumstances? And it's a shame that Senator Kearney isn't here right now because he might have been able to answer that. But if you could make a wish list, what would it be? A legislative wish list.
Well, I think there should be earmarks and funding to research, period, that's it. I mean, we self-funded all the research that we've done to date in our processing facility. Now, when you talk about these guys who say they're processing, I've been around this whole nation. I've been to companies in Montana, companies in Texas, companies all over. And when you go and see that they're processing, they might be doing a ton an hour, a half ton. It's so minuscule that it's just enough for R&D. They're not selling anything. We've only been processing at scale for the past 16, 18 months. And I've been at this for over 4 years. And we spent over probably $3 million of our own money buying decortication equipment, buying downline processing equipment, buying fiber cleaning equipment, just packaging and handling. It's very hard. The hemp plant is a very hardy plant, and it's not easy to process it, but at the same time, it's a very strong plant. So that's why it does so many things. But right now, we need a concerted effort. There is no competition in this. We all need to work together. So we need a bigger coalition so we can communicate with each other and brainstorm, hey, how did you overcome this? Hey, how did you do this? When I got in this industry, somebody talked about Dr. Groff. You know, not the one, we're working with the one.
Cover crop, Steve, you mean?
Yeah, well,
Dr. Groff.
we're working with him. BioPhil is.
Yeah.
But the other one,
Groff.
North America,
Yeah.
like he wanted to take this industry and really keep it for himself. And I tried to collaborate with him plenty of times and he wasn't interested. And I'm like, you know, this is a very big industry. The only way it's gonna grow if we work together. And that's the mindset that we need at this point. We need the government and we need all of us to come together to get this supply chain and manufacturing program together. And that's it, that's the bottom line.
We have gotten money for research, about $500,000. Can't complain there. It really allowed us to move forward with some things. I think that one thing that would really help, I mean, if we're talking about government, in the UK, Hemp took off when the government financed the public housing project. And so basically it gained credibility and just spread across the country. So it was a very loud project, and everybody found out about it all of a sudden, and found out about the benefits, and then it blew up. So I actually talked to Senator about this, and maybe there is an opportunity there. But it's hard for me to imagine what they can do to help our industry, because really it all comes down to private money. You know, it's private money of the people. Do they want a house made out of hempcrete or not? If they do, if they have money, they'll make it happen. The facility, it's also the amount of money we need. There are programs that sponsor certain projects in certain areas, zones like Philadelphia or Reading. And if we have a place, if we have a facility, they will come and help. But also it comes down to us seeking private money, which is what we're doing as well now, trying to raise money. So I think we're trying to get that help funding from anywhere we can, and we put a lot of effort, like emphasis on private money, I have to say, because there are a lot of people out there, angel investors, who believe in impact businesses, and so we're hoping that those companies and people will be able to sponsor something like that, especially in California, because California is burning.
So we're in Lancaster County, which is the #1 non-irrigated farming in the whole United States. California beats us because they irrigate their farming. I envision this more as a thing between the universities. This would be Penn State, Jefferson, those type of institutions with their students working with farmers. So my ice cream issue, I would take that to Penn State. I'm in the same boat. I've been doing this on Smoke and Mirrors for 25, 30 years, and it'll be a great book when it comes out if we have a happy ending. But I'm not really interested in getting government money. I didn't take any PPE money during the COVID issue because we're $31 trillion in debt. And again, the government's not there to pick winners and losers. It does come from the private industry, and it comes from our universities and those people that have the wherewithal. And I'm going to Robbie Anderman up in Canada, who did hemp ice cream that we have the license for. He wants to do a co-op. And so that's probably will be the approach to the Amish, is to co-op. We want to grow the hemp seed because it's gluten-free, and that would help our gluten-free soft pretzel stick that way. All the cow, with the decrease in the dairy processing here in Pennsylvania, those mills should have been taken over, and we could have been processing hemp seed there. Right now, when we had processed hemp flour, it had been cross-contaminated with spelt or other flour, so it's not totally gluten-free. But that's another angle. But definitely fiber for battery parts and things of that nature. And again, the Amish would start growing it and should start growing it versus wearing polyester. I've heard lots of stories about burn victims, and the only thing left were their cotton t-shirts and their underwear, versus the polyester that they're wearing. But again, a lot of education, and I think that this will happen because the Amish will get on board after learning about CBD and things of that nature. So I'm not saying the government has to come in, because that's not their job. It is private individuals, it's people that have a vested interest to make things happen, to take those chances, to learn the hard way, as I've done for the last 25, 30 years, and Jerry has, and Anna is, and everybody else in the hemp industry. And if you're not out there buying it, then that's another key killer. I've seen companies come and go in the Hemp Industries Association. This is hemp plastic. This is beading that goes into the plastic, and that's part of decarbonizing our tools. So again, adding value to products in Lancaster County, besides pretzels and mustard and all that good stuff.
So that's a lot of the work of what Altogether Now PA does, is building coalitions. We have a plant medicine coalition, and that's what the P3 program is under. We have the building materials and the fiber and renewable energy and food co-op. So building this network is really important. It starts with little events like this, panel discussions of all the movers and the shakers in the industry, which are really important. I want to thank Jerry and Anna and Shawn for coming, and I definitely want to say thank you to Skip for Transition Town. And we have actually 20 more minutes. So